What's up, everybody? Welcome back for Blacksburg Buzz number 51. Today, we're talking about EA Sports College Football 25. I want to talk about what I like about the game, what I like about Virginia Tech, and where I think they really knocked it out of the park. So, in terms of the video game, there's a few key areas that I think they really did so well. That's the defense, the big plays, and the environment. The defense, it's tough to play. It's actually hard to play defense. Tackling is pretty difficult. It's fairly easy to get juked or honestly just accidentally run past the guy that you're trying to tackle if you even make a small mistake. I like that the sprint button, it's a little bit more strategic than a lot of football games I played. It's beneficial to use it sparingly, to really save it for when you're in the open field, when you're on a breakaway, rather than spamming it 24/7 because you don't have the same agility when you're going at full speed than you do as, when you're kind of at half speed. You can move side to side a lot easier and, find gaps, find holes, find lanes and whatnot. So that's a couple things that I really like about the game. But before we go into the rest of what the game does well, let's talk about today's video sponsor, BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything online sports betting. Right now, you can receive a 50% free bet of up to $250 on your first deposit to bet on anything from the Olympics to baseball to Formula One racing. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. Bet online, the game starts here. So in addition to the fact that defense is pretty hard to play, I love how that works well with the big plays in this game. It really reminds me of college football in a lot of ways. The players are great, but obviously they're going to make some mistakes. Sometimes your coverage is just going to fall apart. Sometimes everything isn't going to go exactly how you planned it to work. The routes aren't going to be exactly perfect down to the T. And it sort of reminds me of the way it happens in real life. You're going to see just some things fall apart. Sometimes the O line just falls apart, even when the other team isn't blitzing, and you only have a split second to get the ball out if you're the quarterback. Big plays are going to happen, and they happen fairly often in this game, but not to the point where it gets excessive and you should always be looking to throw it deep. So I like the way that they really found a balance in that, where big plays are fun, where they happen often, but at the same time, the defense can hold up in some cases, and you can't just be looking to throw it to the end zone every single time, as in some other football games. You run Hail Marys over and over again, and maybe they always work. The last thing that I think they really killed was just the environments. Road teams have to battle through the tough environments, and it intensifies as the home team builds momentum. I love the way they did it. It affects passing, and the biggest thing for me is it makes kicking really tough, actually. I love the way it affects kicking. It's a lot more rewarding to win on, say, a field goal than in a lot of Madden games that I've played. It doesn't feel like just a cop out. If you're playing your buddy and it's a 3-point game or a 2-point game and you kick a field goal to go into overtime or to win it, it doesn't feel like a cop out. It doesn't feel like the guy you're playing is going to shame you and put an asterisk on your win because you kicked a field goal. Because a lot of times when you're playing a football game, you play a little bit more aggressively than you would a real game. You might go for it on fourth down a lot more often. You might go for it in a lot of situations where you would kick, and it doesn't feel like as much of a cop out in this game as it does in other ones where kicking it was way too easy and you kind of got frowned down on when you kicked a field goal to take the lead, to win it, to tie it, whatnot. And I love that. It makes kicking actually tough. Now, less on the game itself and more about the Hokies. How is the Virginia Tech team in EA Sports College Football 25? I think Virginia Tech is really solid. Now, I'm still getting used to the game. The defense certainly stood out to me for the Hokies. Aeneas Peebles and Antoine Powell-Ryland at 87 and 88 respectively, they wreak a ton of havoc for quarterbacks, especially if the opponent has a poor O-line. It's tough enough as it is for many O-lines to hold that pocket together, to really create alleys for the run, and it feels pretty real on how a lot of plays, on some plays, you'll just see the breakdown immediately. Either there's a good blitz or a defensive player makes a great move, and sometimes you just have no time at all. Other times, on other plays, you have all the time in the world to throw the ball, to read your routes and whatnot. But like Peebles and APR, those guys just break through O lines with ease. It's amazing how much pressure they can create on the quarterback, forcing quick, fast throws that sometimes are errant. Sometimes you don't have a lot of time to read the defense, to read the routes, and you make a bad throw, and it led to a few picks for me when I was playing for the Hokies. It definitely worked out well. I got a bunch of sacks also with those two guys. So, breaking through that line, creating pressure, those two probably stood out to me the most on this Virginia Tech team. But I can't talk about the defense without talking about Dorian Strong, the highest rated player on the Hokies team at 91 in this game. The offense is definitely easier to play than defense in the ball game, but Dorian Strong makes it pretty tough in a lot of passing attacks. He's just the best guy on the team, and you can tell he is all over different receivers, making their lives hard, breaking up a lot of catches. Dorian Strong is definitely a good one. I don't usually play as the corner, so I didn't notice it as much, but I definitely did notice a lot of passes were getting broken up, and most of that was due to Dorian Strong. Now, flipping over to the offensive side of the ball, Bashal Tutin was a star to me at 85. He's tough to bring down. He's got great moves, solid speed as well with a 90 rating. I was running the ball with ease. Certainly just getting good lanes, and if you see him well, Tutin can just break through him without hesitation. And I think he really stood out on that offensive side. I mean, I was getting 4, 5, 6 yards a carry, and it really opened up the passing game for me. Tutin was just fantastic. I think I ran him in for 2 touchdowns in one game. He's got great stats, and he just performed well on the field. I mean, he just being tough to bring down as it is fantastic because you combine that with getting in the open field and how difficult it is to actually make open field tackles. And if you dodge one tackle here or there, you're on a great breakaway and you can easily score, grab 30, 40, 50 yards, maybe a breakaway touchdown as well. So Tutin was fantastic when I played as Virginia Tech in this one. And then, of course, Kyron Drones. Just as in real life, he has great legs in this game. If you're aware of the holes on defense and you see a lane in the pocket, you don't really have a good throw, he's very tough to handle as a quarterback. If there's no spy and no one really in the area, I noticed that quarterbacks can really break out for some solid runs and get first downs pretty comfortably, even on, a first, second, and 10. a quarterback rushing, getting out of the pocket quickly and reading that. If there's no spy, it's really tough to take that as a defense. There's just too much field to cover, and when you're playing out in coverage and your quarterback gets up and moving and he's pretty quick, he's going to get a few yards out of it. Now, I have had some trouble with the sliding, but obviously Drones is a pretty big dude, so he handled a few tackles pretty well, although I would like to use the slide button a little bit more often just to make sure, because you do get injuries in this game, even in, just a quick play game. You can see guys get hurt, and obviously you don't want to do that and lose some of your stars if you're trying to beat your buddy. Now, there's a couple more things I'm excited for about this game. I haven't been able to purchase it yet, although I've played it pretty significant amount with some of my friends. I'm looking forward to building a dynasty. Once I'm back at school, that's what I'm going to be doing. Obviously, I'm going to start with Virginia Tech. Now, don't look down on me for that. I just want to do one with the Hokies before I go to what you might call like your true rebuild teams that have really been struggling for several years and are, just at the bottom of their conference, teams that have struggled to win historically, things like that and whatnot. So I want to start with Virginia Tech and, see if I can get them to the national championship game. Obviously, that's my school, and I just think it would be fun to do. But the other teams that I'm looking at, I've got a few choices that I'm kind of thinking about. Potentially UAB. I love their mascot. I mean, Blaze is sweet. You've got a dragon as your mascot. That emblem in the middle of the field is awesome. They're not a great football team. I think they could be really fun to try and take to a natty in a couple of seasons. Hawaii as well. An interesting school with awesome traditions. I think they've got cool uniforms. They're located in one of the most beautiful states in the country. There's a lot of difficulties associated with that, of course, because in the game recruiting, you rely a lot on pipelines and, you have different interests from different players. Some guys want to stay close to home. And, Hawaii is far away for most people in the country unless you already live in Hawaii. So I think it could be pretty tough to rebuild, but I think it would be a lot of fun as well, with those traditions, with the cool uniforms, just being in Hawaii. You've got the difficulty of travel there. I think it could be a really cool rebuild. On top of that, you've got Marshall. There's a ton of history with this team. I mean, Randy Moss and the unfortunate 1970 plane crash that took 75 lives. I think Marshall would be a great one to try and take to the top. They haven't been super great recently, but with all that history there and, just a team that people know their name, I think Marshall could be a fun one. I'm a big fan of West Virginia in general. I've spent a lot of time in the state. I think it's a gorgeous state. That one in Hawaii might be probably two of the top ones for me, at least, that I've been able to visit. And, I think just taking Marshall to the top would be a really cool team to build. Another one, Ball State. Now, they're one of the worst teams in the game. They were 4-8 last season, 3-5 in conference in the MAC. Not a great team. The other broadcaster for my summer ball team that I'm living with this summer, Tommy, he put me onto them. He's been having a great time rebuilding Ball State, and it's making me think maybe that could be a good one. It's had some difficulties. They're pretty low rated team in the game, and that's kind of what you want out of a rebuild. You want a team that's not going to be great. You don't want to rebuild Ohio State because they're right there on the top. You don't want to rebuild, a Michigan, a USC, whatnot. You don't want to take teams like that. You want to take lower tier teams that have a lot of fun, and it's more of a challenge. And what I've seen from this team is that could be one of them. And the last one I've really been thinking about was ECU. Think they could be a cool rebuild. I've been able to go past their campus a few times this season as we play a team in Greenville in our league. It seems like a fun environment. I really like the logo for ECU. I think they've got some great uniform combos as well. And I also just enjoyed watching their baseball team during the regional, which doesn't directly relate, but kind of put them in the front of my mind a little bit. I think they could be a fun team to build up and to take to the top of college football. So I've got a few options. If you have any other recommendations, let me know. Or if you think one of these five really stands out to you and you think that should be the team I go with, let me know. I'm always curious to know what other people are thinking and what teams they're rebuilding and looking forward to building a dynasty with. So that's all I've got today. Just some EA Sports college football talk, a fun game that I think they really knocked it out of the park. There's, of course, some things that could be done better, but generally speaking, the first game in about a decade, and I think it's been fantastic. Love playing it. It is a whole lot of fun, and I just can't wait to really get into it, play it a lot more, and bring some of these teams up to the top, build that dynasty, maybe build my own player and see if I can get him the starting role at a big school. So it's a great game. If you haven't been able to play it, definitely give it a shot. A lot of fun aspects. You can build your own uniforms, you can build your own team, you can create a made up team as well. So a lot of fun aspects in this one. Unfortunately, no mascot mode, which I'm pretty upset about. But generally speaking, a fantastic game, and I'm really looking forward to playing it a lot more. So stay tuned for some more episodes coming up. Going to talk about, does Virginia Tech have a realistic shot at the ACC championship game? Going to talk about some of those football recruits that we picked up this summer. So a lot of great content coming up that you'll want to stay tuned for. But until next time.